He is doing the accidental Everest.
People do not wander around and then suddenly find themselves at the top of Everest. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. That quote is my favourite one from the late Zig Ziglar. And what he's saying is, look, if you've got a dream, if you've got a plan, you need to do something about it. You've actually got to do some work to get there. Now, you've probably heard many speeches telling you how to achieve your goals. You've probably heard about hard work. You've probably heard about organisation. You've probably heard about time management. You've probably heard about hard work, passion, motivation, and guess what? A bit more hard work. Now, these things are all great. They're fantastic. They're really helpful. But what I've noticed about people who don't achieve their goals is that there is a missing ingredient, which is none of those things. And the missing ingredient is this: they are not aligned with their goals. Okay, what do I mean by aligning yourself with your goal? Now, if anybody here has got a science background, you're not going to like what you're going to hear in the next 7 minutes, because it is completely non-scientific. It can't be proved, but it's true. Aligning yourself with your goals means developing the thoughts, feelings, behaviours and attitudes of somebody who has, and this is really, really important, already achieved that goal. Okay? So, if you want to double your income, for example, you're not going to do it while you still have the same attitude to money that has got you to your present level of income. This can get quite difficult and quite weird, because say one of your goals is to move to the countryside and you're living in the city. How do you start being that person who lives in this beautiful cottage with the birds singing outside, when in actual fact your everyday reality is giving you urban stress, traffic pollution, noise, and all the stress of living in the city? How do you do it? Well, I'm going to tell you. You need to start committing small acts of rebellion against your everyday reality, okay? You don't need to overhaul your life, but you do need to start moving away from what reality is giving you to start acting in accordance to how you want this to be. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of these acts of rebellion. The first is from a writer called Mike Dooley. And once upon a time, when he was very skint and he was hard up, he decided he wanted to increase his income. And he thought he would do this by giving to charity. What? What he did, every week he wrote a cheque to a different charity. It was a real stretch. It was not something he found easy, but he did it, and the cheques were never very big. But his income started to increase, and what he says happened is that he was actually sending a message. He was sending a message to his unconscious, to reality, I don't know. But the message said, actually, I'm doing all right. I'm doing so well, I'm giving to charity. And his income increased. He was quite gruntled, as you can imagine. Second act of rebellion is myself, because I'm not going to stand here and talk a talk without walking the walk. My act of rebellion came in January time. I'll take you back to last year. Last summer, I gave up sugar and I gave up dairy. This was a big thing for me. People here have heard me talk a lot about my issues with food. But what I'll say very quickly about it was, when I gave those things up, I thought, fantastic, all my excess weight is going to fall off now. No cakes, no biscuits, no pizzas, no cheese sandwiches. Fantastic. No, I didn't. The weight did not fall off. I'll tell you what happened though. About January time, I started walking around saying to people, can I tell you something? I'm a role model for empowered weight loss. Do you want me to tell you how to lose some weight? I've made a few videos. Does anybody want to try them? And I found some guinea pigs for my ideas. And inside my head, there was this voice. We've all got this voice, haven't we? This voice said to me, Who do you think you are? Excuse me, love, you're still fat. You can't tell people how to lose weight when you're still overweight yourself. I was quaking in my boots. The very first person I told about this, and I stood there saying, look at me, I can tell people how to lose weight, and I'm going to make a business from this and make money from speaking about it. The very first person, I had the voice there in my head, and I was all ready for her to say, sorry, it's crap, because you're still fat. She didn't. Of course she didn't. But the voice in my head, my thought she would. Then I started to lose weight. It was at that point that I started to get up in the morning and instead of thinking, I must do some exercise, I've got to, just think of the calories, I thought, I want to exercise for myself. That was my act of rebellion. And it worked. Third act of rebellion, and this kind of puts me and Mike Dooley in the shade. I don't know if you've ever seen a film called Touching the Void. This is about a climber called Joe Simpson. And what happened was he was climbing the Andes and he fell down a crevasse and he broke his leg really, really badly. His climbing partner assumed he was dead. Joe assumed that while he was still alive, he was actually going to die. His climbing partner went down the mountain back to base camp. Joe thought, okay, I'm just going to do what I can. And amazingly, he got out of the crevasse. And then he bomb shuttled basically down the mountain with all these massive boulders back to base camp. And he thought, if there's even the smallest chance that my climbing partner is there, I'm going to go for it. And what he did was he set himself 20-minute goals. He would be sitting there in agony. I mean, you can imagine how painful this was. And he would say, okay, there's a rock over there. I am going to reach that rock in 20 minutes. And he had this voice inside his head. It was a bit more helpful than my one. The voice said, okay, you haven't made it in 20 minutes. It was really insistent. There was no mercy in this voice. But it got him to those 20-minute goals. He got back to the base camp. His partner was about to leave that day, and he survived. But the really interesting thing about this story is he says, I was convinced I was going to die. I didn't believe in God or any kind of higher power, but he said, I didn't want to die alone. So, although his situation was completely hopeless, he aligned himself with his goal, which was just to get back down the mountain by these small specific acts of rebellion, which were the 20-minute goals. So there you have it, 3 very different situations, 3 very different acts of rebellion. I can't explain this. Some people call it the law of attraction, some people call it God, higher power, the universe. I don't know, but what I do know is that there are non-physical forces at work that are doing a lot of the work for us. And if you can stand there and say, hey, I'm already there in some kind of way, faking it till you make it, as Flick was saying, is part of it. But it's not just about convincing other people, it's about convincing yourself. And I can tell you something, that it's a lot easier than climbing Everest.
Ballot slip for Harriet with some feedback.